Yay, technology. How's everybody going? Good to see you. Sorry, we had a little bit of a internet hiccup, of course, because that's the way it works. Good to see everybody on a Monday night. How is everybody doing? Good to see Katie House. Good to have you. Of course, we got Blake Sanborn here as well. Good to see you both. Debbie Johnson, my friend. Good to see you. Glad you were here. We'll take just about a minute and a half or two to let people get here. Say hi in the chat. Let me know where you're watching from. And we will jump into chapter 5 of Soundtracks, The Surprising Solution to Overthinking. I got to tell you guys, this chapter hit me hard in a good way that I didn't appreciate. So we'll talk about that a little bit. What's up, Jim? Good to see you, my friend. Glad you were here. All right. Watching from Alabama. I know we got Alabama in the house. We've got Michigan. I know we've got Texas. I know we've got Oklahoma here as well. So it's good to see everybody from all over the country. What's up, Christy? Good to see you. Oh, man. Wisconsin. Man, we're covering the whole country, getting around. Will Louie in California. Good to see you, my friend. I'm glad you were here. All right. And all right, we got all kinds of people. We got Amy saying hi from Washington, I believe. Yeah. This is great. Good to see everybody. Hey, Kurt, good to see you, my friend. Glad you were here. Coast to coast. That's right. Glad everybody's here tonight. This is great. What's up, Victoria from Virginia? Good to have you here. Take about another 30 seconds and we will jump right on in. Well, I'll tell you guys, I hope that you've been enjoying this. This week's chapter hit me really hard in a good way, but it was like reading my mail. If you guys are church people and you ever have a preacher get up there and start talking about something that seems really personal, like he knows something, that's kind of how I felt about this chapter. In fact, to be perfectly honest, I talked with Will for a while here before tonight's live about how this chapter has been hitting me, and it's really good, really, really good. Hey, Kay, good to see you, East Texas. Good to have you, Kay. Glad you're here. All right, so let's just jump into chapter 5. It's called "Win the Week." Chapter 5 of Soundtracks: The Surprising Solution to Overthinking, and let's just start talking about this. A lot of these chapters I've enjoyed starting by reading how it opens, and I think this one's no different. So I'm going to go ahead and just read this opening part here to you and talk to you a little bit about how it struck me. So it starts with this. He says, despite believing the soundtrack, I think I can be a public speaker and author back in 2008, I hit a snag in 2017. That was the year that my book called Finish came out and the year I got stuck. I didn't decide to stop writing. There was no official proclamation or retirement tour. I just looked up one day and realized I hadn't written for a year and there's no new book on the horizon. That's not a big deal if you have a full-time job and write books on the side, but that's not the case with me. I only do two things. I write books, and then I give speeches about those books. If I wasn't writing, then eventually public speaking would dry up too, and I'd probably have to become a coal miner. I didn't know much about coal except that it's dirty, and I live near Kentucky, so I could probably figure it out. And this is the quote that I underlined here. The less I wrote, the louder my overthinking got. In hindsight, that makes sense. If action eliminates overthinking, then inaction breeds it. Since I wasn't physically engaged in the act of writing, I started overthinking more. I got caught in a nasty cycle. Overthinking makes you feel stuck, which means you don't act. When you're not busy acting, you have more time and energy to overthink. All of that additional overthinking makes you feel even more stuck, which leads to even more inaction. Guess what that inaction turns into? Overthinking. Guess what that overthinking turns into? Inaction. I repeated that little loop thousands of times. Man, starting out that way, I know that I have been in that loop too, and I I figured that it would be a good thing to start this chapter out with just talking about kind of setting the tone for this chapter. So this is a quote from page 107. But replacing your soundtracks is about identifying the soundtracks you've been listening to and then owning the responsibility for changing them. So that's kind of what this whole book's about. And then this is a quote that I just read. The less I wrote, the louder my overthinking got. If action eliminates overthinking, then inaction breeds it. My gosh, that hit me hard. Talk to me, everybody in the chat there. What do you think about that phrase? Do you feel like that is true for you? I know it is for me. There's a couple things that I have just been absolutely struggling with, and I shared them with Will. They're not something I'll share right at the moment, but I will tell you, I've been stuck on a couple things, one in particular, and I've been stuck in a loop of overthinking, and inaction has bred more overthinking in my head. So this is not just some random thing. This is something that I'm struggling with in a particular area of my life, and it's good to know that I'm not alone. Now, we don't want to get excited about being together and then not do anything. So we'll have to do some action on this for sure. But that circle, that overthinking loop. In fact, I believe, yeah, that's my next quote here. The overthinking loop. Overthinking leads to a lack of action. A lack of action leads to more overthinking. So that has definitely been something that I can identify with as well. And looks like everybody else is kind of saying the same thing. Yeah, a lot of you, for sure. I mean, Christy, preach. Katie, yes. Tina, absolutely. Kay, you feel very seen. Yeah, my friend, you are. Debbie is right. If you aren't working, your mind has time to overthink, for sure. And Tyler says, finding the balance between thinking and overthinking is hard for me. Man, absolutely, my friend. I totally get that. So that's something that I've been struggling as well. And so that's where he started out the chapter. And I'll read this other section too here. He said he talked about things that he wrote just to get going again. He said he wrote a collection of 100 short, funny essays that made him laugh out loud in the coffee shop, but would probably bore other people to tears. I wrote 345 words about why black coffee is the CrossFit of hot beverages, because it's impossible for you to drink it without letting me know you drink it. And 400 words about how I kind of hope the dirt bike guy in our neighborhood crashes. Not enough to hurt him, though he'd definitely get scraped up since he hasn't worn a shirt since 2003, but just enough to ensure that his dirt bike is never able to do midnight wheelies again in front of our house. Publishers will not be lining up for that one. And this is the part I highlighted. That's okay, though, because the goal of writing for him, wasn't to release a book. It was to release me. I was creatively stuck. So I created a new soundtrack, Writers Write, and then turned it into action. And boy, that started speaking to me right there. Is I need to write a new soundtrack that I can turn into action. Yeah, Debbie said, I love the car story, right? Then he talks about how he has a section called Mr. Rogers was on to something. And he takes a little bit to get to the part about Mr. Rogers. But he talks about a soundtrack that he landed on for himself to keep moving. And that section made me think of something in particular. And I just wrote it down. This is a quote from me, actually. That is something I wrote is, if you want to stop hating something, don't listen to music that says hate this. Because of course, we're not talking about music. We could be talking about music, but we're using the analogy of a soundtrack, right? Something that plays over and over and over. And I realized, Mark, if you want to get past something or through something or over something or around something, Why are you listening to something that keeps saying this is hard, this is bad, you hate this? Because if that's the soundtrack you're listening to, Mark, then you will have all kinds of trouble getting over, around, through, or under this thing, right? So if you want to stop hating something, Mark, don't listen to music that says hate this. Change the soundtrack. That's a quote from me there. Yes, Debbie, that's so good. I took writers write and made it creators create. That's good, my friend. I'm going to steal that soundtrack because I am a creator, and creators create. So I'm gonna use that myself. I think that's really, really good. Yes, Debbie, I will steal it and call it my own. I'll try to remember to quote you on that for sure. That's really good. All right. Yeah, keep telling me what your thoughts are on any of this chapter. I'd love to hear them. The next part he talks about is he said, for months and months, I just kept creating new soundtracks and turning them into actions so that I can complete the book. He was talking about this book, actually, this book that, at the time. And he created new soundtracks over and over to keep him moving forward. And he said, it was working well, and I decided to build on my momentum with something I call overwhelming action. If I've got a big goal like writing a book, running a half marathon, or not eating queso every night as though it's some sort of melty vegetable, I try to overwhelm the goal with action to make sure I accomplish it. I wasn't going to just hope that writing the book felt light and easy. I was going to get creative and deliberate. Enter Nike. And he talks about how Nike created a new shoe called the Nike Vaporfly 4% Flyknit. He talks about that and how they're incredibly light and deeply cushioned and undeniably weird. He says the shoes look like what an elf would wear if that elf was also in the movie Tron. The back of the shoe even comes to a sharp angle that is perfect for working in the Keebler tree making delicious EL fudge cookies. Ooh, I love those cookies. But here's what he's talking about. He saw them one day when he was buying a different pair of shoes, and he picked them up and he said they're the lightest shoe he's ever held in his life. And he tried them on and they felt easy to run in. And what he ended up doing was he bought these shoes and they sit in a box beside his desk. And the only time he wears them is when he writes. And he said, like a neon green Mr. Rogers, when I come into work on the book, I take off my other shoes and I put on my light and easy writing shoes. And I loved that because he created a physical soundtrack that said, hey, because earlier he talked about how writing is light and easy as a soundtrack, light and easy. And he put on his light and easy shoes when he goes to write. And so his mind just clicked over. And so I love that. Do you guys feel the same way that your environment can do a lot for your mind and your thinking? You know, if you're wearing nice clothes, you tend to think of yourself in a different way, right? If you create an environment that's creative, it's easier to be creative in that environment. So I love that. And what I wrote here is I forgot to share this part too. Is the overwhelming actions is what he said there, and I wrote changing things around the thing. So if you want this thing to change, I'm going to change the things around it to make it easier. Years ago, I was speaking at a marriage conference, and I talked about how the inverse is also true, that if we make things really difficult for somebody or make the environment difficult for somebody to change, it's going to be very hard to them. And I talked about wrapping something in barbed wire and asking somebody to swallow it. It's very, very difficult. And sometimes we do that to ourselves, right? Is we let soundtracks play around a situation that says you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. And then we somehow are surprised when we can't do it. So that's kind of the inverse of this, right? So he put on his light and easy writing shoes, which I love that. So kind of think about that, guys. For those of you, all of us who are struggling with overthinking, what's your version of neon green Mr. Rogers shoes? What could you do to help yourself get in the right frame of mind to get something done or to push through or to stop overthinking? What is it you could do? Kay, that's really good. Kay, I'm going to read that. Kay says it's really interesting. I never thought about that, but specifically my shoes. If I want to get something done, I have to put on my tennis shoes. If I leave my Crocs on, I tend to be more distracted during the day. That's what he's talking about, right? That's exactly what he's talking about. And we all know that it's not shoes for everybody. We get that, right? But I understand what Kay is saying. Um, if I'm wearing certain things that I'm not comfortable in, my brain will go somewhere else. If I don't feel great about myself, um, yeah, lots of little things like that, soundtracks that will help you get in the right place, right? So that's exactly what we're saying. That's really good. Thank you for that, Kay. That's awesome. Really good. Anybody else have thoughts on that? Feel free to share them. I'd love to hear them. Yeah, Michelle says environment is huge for me. If I'm overwhelmed or if my space is cluttered, I need a clean and open space to have a clear mind. That's exactly what we're talking about, Michelle. That's really good. Because for you, that'd be a soundtrack, right? Or a negative one if it's cluttered, right? So a positive soundtrack would be to have a clean and open space to have a clear mind. So that's good. If we get a open space, clean and open space with some great tennis shoes, that would be a good combination, right? Really good. Yeah, Tina says absolutely, Michelle. I think we're all kind of feeling that one, right? Absolutely. So on page 106, he says the next thing I want to kind of highlight there is he asked the question. He says, you might never run a race or write a book, but if you want a simple way to see what new soundtracks would help your life, take out your calendar and ask yourself, where do I want to win this week? You've got something that matters headed your way, and the more new soundtracks you use, the easier it will be to accomplish it. I think that's really good. Where do I want to win this week? Again, as I was talking with Will earlier today, it was such a Will, if you're still around, thank you so much for being a great friend. Um, I I have to start looking at my calendar and asking where do I want to win this week, and doing something that helps me win in that week. So that's really good. I sorry, can I just squirrel for a second? Uh, Every now and again, I recognize how much technology has influenced the way we think, and I'm holding the book like this, right? And I'm reading, and I wanted to check to see what time it was, see how much time I had left. And I looked up in the upper right corner of the page to see what time it was. I don't know about you guys' books, but there's no time in the upper right corner of your book. That's on your computer or your phone. So I thought someone would find that amusing. So that's really great. So start by asking, where do I want to win this week? You've got something that matters headed your way, and the more new soundtracks you use, the easier it will be to accomplish it. Really good. Yes. Okay. I gotta share that too. Good. I like the thought of just writing or creating, not necessarily creating something that needs to be a masterpiece or something to publish. Just create, let it flow so the right juices get flowing. Absolutely. That's so good. Such a good soundtrack. Very, very good. Love that. All right. So let me go to the next one here. Looking at the week ahead, where do you want to win with the people in your life? So he's talking about the different things that are in your life. He says the reason you should ask that question is because you have a soundtrack for everyone in your life. You know that's true. Right now, there are certain people who can cause a cacophony of soundtracks to play just by sending you a text message. You don't even have to read the text, and you're already fired up with a heated response. So we all know that's true. There's a soundtrack for everybody. So the question is, looking at the week ahead, where do you want to win with the people in your life? Really, hey, what's up, Hannah? Good to see you. Glad you're here. And he talks with a person. He talks about a person at work that you could have trouble with. And one of the things that I noticed that he did in this whole section, which I really like a lot, is he said this over and over again. He asked the question, what's behind that? Pull the thread. What's behind that? What's true? And what he was doing was he was talking through how a particular person could frustrate you throughout your day. And he said, well, what's behind that? What's behind that? Pulling that thread, what's true? And I felt like that was a really good uh, habit to get into, is to asking yourself when someone's frustrating you, what's behind that frustration? Because a lot of times it's not the surface thing that you thought it was; it's something else. And a lot of times it's more about me than it is about that other person. So it's really good, a good question to ask. So what's behind that? Pull the thread. What's behind that? What's true? All right. Then there's a near the end of the chapter. There's a section called You are somebody's Lego," which I thought this was a fun little section too. And he says you have a soundtrack for every person in your life, but you also have one for everything you have to do. Your responsibilities as a parent, as a spouse, as an employee are all crawling with soundtracks. So take your calendar back out and look at your to-do list. Where do you want to win on your to-do list? Where do you want to win? Where in your life do you want to succeed? Where could you be making faster, easier? What to improve? What do you want to dominate? What do you want to crush? And I felt like this section would resonate with everybody here because he talked about sales. And I think most of us, in addition to all the things we're doing, we're also in the laser business, right? And we are always concerned about sales. So let me just read this to you. Tell me while I'm reading this, did this ring to you at all? Because it definitely did to me. He said, where in your life do you want to succeed? When I asked myself that question, the answer was obvious: sales. I worked in corporate marketing for 15 years. The sales department was a completely different organization that I knew very little about. Then, when I started my own business 8 years ago, I learned something very quickly. I was now in sales. I had to sell myself, my services, and my books. I wanted to be awesome at that, and I knew I needed to replace a few soundtracks to get there. I decided to jump right onto my broken soundtracks related to selling. One was, quote, if I keep pushing my business so often, people will be angry with me. Will Louie, if you're still in the house, you need to type amen on that one, because Will talks about this all the time. People, for the most part, are not tired of hearing you sell. In fact, they're typically not even hearing half the time you say it. So that was one of his soundtracks he needed to break, was if I keep pushing my business so often, people will be angry with me. This one happens because if you're new to sales, you might unknowingly think about the worst version of it. It's easier to remember a negative example than a positive one. And you might associate sales with a sleazy salesman from a movie or a bad customer experience you had. When that happens, you mentally transform from an entrepreneur passionately sharing something you care about in a way that will serve people, and instead you become a vacuum cleaner salesman trying to trick widows into buying complicated vacuums they can't afford. But here's the question he asks, but is that true? Do people get mad if you share your business with them? And he tells a story. He says, I'm never mad when someone sells me something amazing that I need. I love going to REI. We don't have any REIs here in Oklahoma, but I think some of you guys do where you live. I love outdoor gear, even if there's a 0% chance that I will ever do that activity. That's the magic of that store. It makes me feel like I could go into into deep underwater spelunking if I just owned the right headlamp system. I did briefly, or rather my wife did, because I gave it to her for Christmas. She returned it promptly. It had a belt pack battery the size of a VCR. Instead, I walk out trying to figure out new reasons that I need to buy the new things they sell. Oh my gosh, that's good. One Christmas, Lego sent us 6 catalogs in the mail. They weren't really different. They just moved around the same 100 products they were pushing that year. It was like the catalog version of Taco Bell ingredients. I didn't care at all. I was excited to see each one. Why? Because I love Legos. I wanted to win at sales, so I decided I needed a new soundtrack. After a little bit of brainstorming, I wrote down this phrase: I am someone's Lego. That is so good. He said, did it work? Well, I sold you this book. So what about you? What do you want to win at this week? And he just goes through a couple of different questions here. There's a quote about I'm somebody's Lego, which is really good. Once you've got a win chosen out, like what do you want to win at this week? Once you've got a win chosen out, ask yourself, what soundtracks will encourage me to accomplish my goal this week? So we've got a couple minutes left here. This is where rubber meets the road for this chapter. So I want everybody, this is your homework if you haven't already done it. This is your homework. Pick out, where do you want to win this week? And then ask yourself, what soundtracks do I need to be playing in here that will encourage me to accomplish my goal this week? So that's the first one, or the second one. Pick a win for this week. And what soundtracks do you need to accomplish those goals? And now that you've got a win and a soundtrack to propel you, ask, what actions do I need to take? What actions do I need to take? So these are the three. Ask yourself, where do I want to win? What soundtracks will help? What actions do I need to take? So those are the three to-dos for this week to put this into action. So we got about 3 minutes left. Talk to me. How did this chapter hit you? If you didn't get a chance to read it, but you just read it through with me just now, what's ringing true to you? What's bouncing around in your head about soundtracks right now? Are you willing to do these three to-dos this week? Where do you want to win? What soundtracks will help? And what actions can I take? Yeah, Hannah, that's really good. Find what inspires you and what you are good at and accelerate in that. I may not be passionate about that, but man, I'm really good at blank. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Christy, for sure. It's helped me to remain mindful in the activities I'm doing. Absolutely. It has me too. Has me too. Where do I want to win? What soundtracks will help? What actions can I take? So this is where reading a book becomes really valuable, right? Because maybe up until this point, it's just been interesting things, funny things, but this is where action starts taking place, and this is where our lives can really change. So, yeah, Hannah says our thoughts can drive our whole day, whether negative or positive. Absolutely. So that's our to-do for this week. I'm looking forward to talking through this maybe with you guys in the private group there. If you didn't see, I also posted all of these slides as PDFs in the group there, just kind of help you. So yeah, Debbie says I'm having a bit of a challenge finding the win. Talk to me for just a minute, and we can talk privately if you want to. But do you mean that? Let me kind of parse what you're asking there, or what you're saying there, Debbie. Do you mean that you're having trouble finding something that you need to win at, or are you having trouble putting it in a sentence? Tell me more what you mean there. Because I know for me, I can tell you right away. I can tell you 2 or 3 that I've got to win at right away. One of them is not sneezing right now, which I'm desperately trying not to, which is a really good look, just like last week. A really good look for having to sneeze on a live stream. Yeah, Hannah says, I keep finding excuses. So, Debbie, when you're thinking about that, I know I'll go ahead. You know what? I'll go ahead and share one of mine. And I know it won't be yours, but maybe this will just get you going on it. There, I thought I wasn't going to do this. So it's 8:30. I can almost bail out on this. I'll do it for real fast for 30 seconds. One of the things I love more than anything is to teach. And I can let soundtracks get in my head and tell me why I shouldn't do this, why I shouldn't do that. Oh, look at these other people that are succeeding. Oh, look at and I can talk myself out of doing the things that I know I need to be doing. And so one of the wins that I need is I need to start working on these classes that I know I should be doing. And so one of my wins is that writers write and creators create, and Mark needs to teach. And so that's what I need to start doing this week. So that's a win I need to lean into. Um, yeah, Christy, a montage of videos of Mark sneezing to come. Yeah. Woo. Um, yeah, definitely. Kay says it's powerful stuff. Definitely opened my mind to a couple of things. I think for me, one of the big things that changed my mindset. More I can do this, less I want to do this. Yeah, I'm with you. This is so good, guys. I hope this. I'm going to cheer all of you on. I need some cheering too, because I'm here with you. I overthink some things a lot. I know that we can see on Facebook, on social media, we tend to see people's highlights and not their blooper reels, right? I don't mean literal ones like me sneezing. I'm talking about the things that we struggle with, and I struggle with this a lot. And so you're not alone. But this week, let me just put this right back up on the screen for just a second, and we'll kind of get out of here. This is your homework. Ask yourself, where do I want to win? What soundtracks will help? And what actions can I take? Very good. All right. So next week, we'll pick up on Don't Fight It, Flip It, which is our next chapter. And until then, you guys have a great week. I will see you in the group. If you want to talk about stuff over there, feel free to post that. And we'll catch up then. Love you guys very much. Thank you for spending the time with me. I will see you guys in the groups. Take care of each other and have a great night. See you later.